Welcome to National Trade Supply. We are excited to have you join our team. You are in attendance today to learn about NT Supply's safety program and your responsibilities to help us maintain a safe, healthy, and efficient workplace. Today we will discuss several topics. At the end of this new hire safety orientation, you will be asked to sign a document indicating your attendance and understanding of our safety policies and procedures. If you have questions relating to specific policies discussed in this orientation, ask your immediate supervisor, a human resources representative, or the safety director for clarification. Today we will be covering the following topics: our corporate health and safety policy, the emergency action plan for facility evacuation or severe weather, accident reporting procedures that you will use to report injuries, accidents, and near misses, general safety and health rules that are applicable to all tasks within our facility, our hazard communication program, bloodborne pathogen awareness, personal protective equipment required anytime you are working within the facility, fire protection and related equipment such as fire extinguishers, machine guarding, lockout tagout awareness, powered equipment, and ergonomic principles for safe lifting and handling of equipment and materials. We recognize that we are covering a lot of material during this presentation, and you should feel free to take notes as necessary. National Trade Supply takes your health and safety very seriously. It is the policy of National Trade Supply to provide a safe and healthy workplace environment for our employees and to establish a cooperative attitude with management, employees, and our customers. Our pledge to each employee is to structure the facility to be as safe as possible and to communicate potential health and safety hazards, as well as provide personal protective equipment and training, amongst other measures that will minimize the possibility of accidents, injury, or illness. An effective health and safety program requires a commitment from both the company and our employees for a combined effort to continually assess and improve the health and safety welfare for everyone. Therefore, our employees must share the responsibility of providing a safe work environment by communicating known health and safety hazards to management and by adhering to the rules set forth by National Trade Supply. In short, it is our policy to identify safety and health hazards within our facility, control for identified hazards through appropriate engineering or administrative controls, to encourage a cooperative safety attitude throughout the facility, and to ensure that all employees are safe and return to their families in the same condition as when they began work. We will do our part to assess the facility and determine where hazards exist, and we would appreciate your participation in our safety program to ensure it's as effective as possible. You can participate in safety in many ways, including reporting potential safety and health hazards, participating on our internal safety committee, watching out for other coworkers during work, and of course by following all National Trade Supply safety policies. Let's discuss emergency action plans and our process for providing safe refuge areas and safe rally points for evacuation. The National Trade Supply Emergency Action Plan is designed to keep you safe when we have threats within or to our facility. The two main events you may encounter are evacuation due to fire, chemical spill releases, gas leaks, or similar hazards that require all personnel to leave the work area, and severe weather procedures for events such as severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, or floods. Both of these types of events may result in activation of our emergency action plan. Let's discuss how we communicate the activation of our company's emergency action plan. If we have a fire, chemical spill release, gas leak, or a similar event, we will activate our emergency action plan for evacuation. In this situation, the building sirens will sound and you will hear an audible alert as well as flashing strobe lights that indicate that you should leave the facility immediately. Alternatively, if we lose power or if our building sirens malfunction, we will blast an air horn 3 times in the office areas and within the warehouse and production areas. As soon as you hear the building alarms or the air horn, you should evacuate and proceed to the rally point. While exiting the facility, do not stop to collect any personal items as this may hinder other individuals' progress from exiting the area. Utilize the nearest emergency exit to you and proceed to the rally point. The rally point for evacuation is on the southwest corner of the property, between Graham Road and the driveway. It is our expectation that all personnel will proceed to this area and stay in an orderly fashion in the grassy area between the driveway and Graham Road. Roll call will be taken to ensure that all personnel have safely evacuated the facility, so it is essential that you do not leave at any time unless you've been given permission. Additionally, supervisors and team leads will sweep their areas to ensure that all have exited prior to leaving the facility themselves. Do not re-enter the facility until you are given direction to do so. Now let's discuss severe weather procedures and our refuge areas within the facility that are intended to keep you safe during severe weather. In this particular region of the country, we are at risk for tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, and flash floods. Each of these severe weather events can result in injury or property damage if adequate precautions are not taken. The National Trade Supply Emergency Action Plan for severe weather is activated by one long blast of an air horn. The air horn will be utilized in the office areas, within National Filter Sales production area, within the warehouse, and within Midwest Purification. As soon as the severe weather EAP is activated, the following protocols should be adhered to. Immediately proceed to the nearest designated shelter, which you can identify by the signage that you see on the screen. All supervisors and team leads will sweep their areas for employees to ensure that personnel have proceeded to the specific refuge area. Employees will then stand with their respective department while in the designated shelter, and a head count will be taken and reported to Abby Robertson. Remember, it's okay if you aren't in the refuge area closest to your typical work area. The important part is that you immediately proceed to a designated refuge area and stay there for the head count. All personnel will remain in the shelter area until an all clear is given. At National Trade Supply, we have 3 main shelter areas. These areas are as follows. For all personnel in the NT Supply office area, you will proceed to the restrooms north of the kitchen area. Please enter the restroom that corresponds with your preferred gender. Employees in the warehouse or within National Filter Sales manufacturing area will report to the restroom facilities near the external stairwell in the warehouse. These restrooms are north and west of the NFS manufacturing area and south of the warehouse. Finally, for all employees in the Midwest Purification office or in the production area, you will report to the restrooms within the Midwest Purification office. After completion of this new hire safety orientation, take a moment to ensure you are familiar with the refuge area closest to the work location that you've been assigned to. Now let's discuss how to report accidents, injuries, or near misses. At National Trade Supply, we will make every effort to prevent the occurrence of accidents, injuries, and illnesses. However, if an accident occurs, or you become ill or injured as a direct result of work activities, you must report the incident immediately. Immediate reporting is essential as it will allow us to provide you with proper treatment and take necessary precautions to prevent recurrence of the event. To report an injury, you must first determine the nature of the injury. If the injury is life-threatening, involves a loss of consciousness, involves heavy bleeding, or the employee is unable to move, walk, or be transported with minimal assistance, then the injury is considered serious. For a serious injury, dial 911 immediately and then proceed to the next step in the procedure. If the injury is not serious, or it is serious and you've already dialed 911, you will then contact a designated responder who will handle the remainder of the incident to completion. You may be asked details regarding the injury or for a witness statement, and providing this information is essential to help us correct existing hazards. Designated first responders for National Trade Supply include
Vince White, Lindsay Burks, Abby Robertson, Tony Wright, Dan Mooring. A hard copy of this policy is posted on several employee notification boards across the facility. These contact numbers can be found there. Now, let's talk general health and safety rules that apply to work performed at National Trade Supply.
Our employee safety responsibilities are straightforward and implemented to keep you safe while at work. At National Trade Supply, we expect you to understand and comply with all policies and procedures which will be discussed during this training, perform all duties in a safe manner using common sense and planning first to assess the task to be completed before proceeding, report any unsafe acts, conditions, or accidents to a supervisor immediately, wear all required personal protective equipment for the task you are completing, be an example for your coworkers, participate in all safety training sessions, including department safety meetings, toolbox talks, or annual refresher trainings, only perform tasks for which you have been trained, and communicate all potential safety improvements or ideas to your supervisor. If you adhere to these principles, our entire team and safety culture will improve. Our next topic is hazard communication, which is essential for employee safety around potentially hazardous materials that may be used in our production areas. Hazard communication is a program in which to disseminate information on chemicals brought into the workplace that you may interact with. This standard is typically known as the Right to Know standard. The objective of hazard communication is to ensure that the hazards of all chemicals produced or imported are evaluated, and that the information concerning their hazards is provided to employers and employees. All employers must have and provide a written hazard communication program and safety data sheets that provide insight into the specific health hazards of all materials. Safety data sheets are available in a database. Check with your supervisor if you need to review a specific material's safety data sheet. Your responsibility with this program is twofold. Number 1, label all secondary containers. Secondary containers are those that are used to move material from a larger manufacturer's container. Examples might be when you move cleaners from large bulk quantity containers into smaller spray bottles. In this scenario, the container must be labeled so everyone can identify its contents. At minimum, you must have the common name or the trade name of the material that you've put on the new secondary container. Additionally, you should provide the manufacturer's information. You are also asked to notify your supervisor if workplace labels are no longer legible on manufacturer containers. We will have a replacement label ordered for replacement. This is essential in the event of accidental exposure to chemicals. If you are concerned in regards to any materials that you use during your work procedures, discuss with your supervisor and we can review the safety data sheet with you. We will ensure you have all necessary protective equipment necessary to keep you safe. Now we'll discuss bloodborne pathogen exposure and our bloodborne pathogen exposure control plan. Exposure to bloodborne pathogens while you work for our team is quite unlikely. However, we want you to understand the risks surrounding potential exposures to bodily fluids and our plan for potential exposure. Exposure to bodily fluids, including blood, saliva, tissues, and others, can potentially be infectious for a variety of conditions. The primary conditions of concern include hepatitis B, which is a typically short-term disease that can be long-term for some individuals. A vaccination is available for hepatitis B, and for those who have been vaccinated, contracting this condition is extremely rare. Hepatitis C is a condition that is extremely dangerous for the majority of individuals who contract it. Hepatitis C attacks the liver directly and is only short-term for about a quarter of the population. Both hepatitis B and C are treatable and can be cured. HIV is an infection for which there is no known cure. HIV, or human immunodeficiency virus, can develop into AIDS, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, if not treated properly. If exposure to blood or a needle stick occurs, contracting one of these conditions is still highly unlikely. However, if you contact any bodily fluids, it's essential that you report this immediately, even if no symptoms of exposure occur. Potential symptoms of these pathogens include nausea, fatigue, vomiting, diarrhea, and fever. The symptoms may be confused for other illnesses, so it's essential to report the exposure so proper precautions can be taken. There are two ways that exposure to bloodborne pathogens can occur. Typically, exposure occurs through parental causes such as a break in the skin or needle stick, or through a mucous membrane in the eyes, nose, or mouth. Mucous membrane exposure tends to occur from splashes of bodily fluids or contacting a mucous membrane after touching bodily fluids. National Trade Supply will take all necessary precautions to prevent potential exposures. We will provide first aid or bloodborne pathogen kits for our team so that adequate personal protective equipment is available. If contact to bodily fluids cannot be avoided, please take that precaution. However, if you must assist a coworker with an injury, utilize the protective equipment included in the first aid or bloodborne pathogen kit. All kits will include, at a minimum, rubber gloves, absorbent pads, and a cleanup bag. Some kits may also include full gowns, face shields, eye protection, and alcohol pads. You are not expected to clean up any spills, and if a spill is suspected to be bodily fluids, please contact your supervisor for instruction. Our post-exposure plan to bloodborne pathogens includes hepatitis B vaccinations and post-exposure evaluations with medical professionals to ensure that proper care is provided. Never ignore an exposure to bloodborne pathogens. If you have any questions regarding bloodborne pathogens, contact a supervisor so adequate information can be provided. Now let's discuss personal protective equipment that is required while working for National Trade Supply. As you may be aware, personal protective equipment, or PPE, is equipment used to protect the employee from potential hazards. PPE includes, but is not limited to, items such as goggles or safety glasses, gloves of a variety of compositions, or hearing protection. Let's discuss personal protective equipment that is required at all times while working for National Trade Supply. At National Trade Supply, the following personal protective equipment is required: closed-toed shoes and shirts that have a minimum of 4-inch sleeves. Please remember, do not wear any loose clothing or any clothing that has any loose parts that may be caught in any kind of moving equipment. Optional personal protective equipment that may be available for use at National Trade Supply includes gloves, hearing protection, safety glasses or goggles, or nuisance dust masks for some areas of our facility. Let's now discuss fire protection and related equipment.
In addition to the previously mentioned personal protective equipment requirements, National Trade Supply also requires heat-resistant gloves, heat-resistant sleeves, and safety glasses while working in, with, or around heated machinery, tools, or processes. In addition to National Trade Supply PPE requirements, all hair must be secured above the shoulders and free from getting tangled in moving parts of machinery. This applies anytime you're working in or around machinery while working at National Trade Supply.
Fire protection and prevention is the process of eliminating hazards that may otherwise result in fire hazards. To minimize the potential for fires within our facility, adhere to the following guidelines. Minimize the accumulation of materials and debris in your immediate work area. Often throughout the workday, you should remove any materials you are no longer using, and you should be removing any debris and putting them in proper waste receptacles. Never store any materials in front of electrical panels. We must maintain at least 3 feet of clearance distances in front of all electrical panels at all times. Only store flammable liquids, such as gasoline or diesel fuels, in approved flammable storage cabinets, and only in approved flammable storage containers. Never smoke or use any equipment that have potential ignition sources near any flammable storage areas or in any areas where flammable vapors may cause ignition and a fire. Let's discuss fire extinguishers and how we use fire extinguishers at National Trade Supply. If a fire occurs and your egress from the facility is not blocked or hindered, extinguish the fire using the nearest portable fire extinguisher. When discharging a fire extinguisher, utilize the PASS system. P. Pull the extinguisher pin. A. Aim at the base of the fire. S. Squeeze the handle. S. Sweep back and forth at the base until the fire is no longer ignited. Now let's discuss machine guarding and the procedures we have in place to protect you from reciprocating or moving parts. Machine guarding is present to protect the machine operator in the work area from hazards created during the machine's typical operation. These hazards may include ingoing nip points, reciprocating or transversing parts, rotating parts, and or flying chips or springs. While performing work for National Trade Supply, never attempt to bypass any guard or protective barrier, remove any guard or protective barrier, remove a guard to make equipment adjustments, or reach into or near moving machinery. If you need some kind of equipment adjustment, discuss with your supervisor, and a plan will be put in place to protect all personnel involved. Violations of this policy may result in serious physical harm and will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. Let's discuss lockout-tagout and the way that we control for hazardous energy to make typical machine adjustments. At National Trade Supply, you may see locks and tags on machinery or electrical panels during maintenance activities. It is essential that you adhere to a few guidelines to protect yourself and to protect all individuals involved in maintenance operations. Remember to never lock and tag out any equipment unless you have been trained and have received your own personal lock and tag. Never attempt to energize any equipment that has a lock and tag present, even if no other personnel are in the area. Never attempt to remove a lock and or tag on a piece of equipment. The only individuals authorized to remove a lock and tag are those individuals that have placed that lock and tag on that specific piece of equipment. Remember, you are classified as an affected employee and should stay away from equipment that has a lock and tag present. We also have quite a bit of moving machinery in our facility. Let's discuss powered equipment. Within our facility, we have a variety of powered mobile equipment. As a result, you must be aware of your surroundings and stay out of the way of any moving equipment. You will never operate any mobile equipment without first receiving training. Violations of this policy will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Remember, we have a warehouse in this facility and several pieces of powered equipment that can cause a severe amount of harm. Stay far away from any mobile equipment and make sure you're listening at all times for any horns that may sound within the facility. The final topic that we will discuss in this new hire safety orientation is principles of ergonomics and safe lifting and handling. What is ergonomics? Ergonomics is the science of fitting the task to the human. The word is derived from the Greek words ergo and nomos, or the natural law of work. Essentially, ergonomics is the process of minimizing physical exertion to protect the human anatomy. Remember to always utilize any lifting assistive equipment that is available, such as pallet jacks or scissor lift tables, and always adhere to the following principles. Remember, if you are lifting any heavy or awkward equipment, perform a team lift, communicating with the lifting partner at all times. If you are picking up material by yourself, remember to always use your legs and keep the back straight. A good practice is to think to yourself, eyes to the skies, when you begin a lift, which will assist you in maintaining the back in an upright position. You also want to always turn with your legs, minimizing any torso rotation. A good phrase to remember is nose and toes should always be facing the same direction. Finally, remember to always utilize any equipment that is available to you to move larger loads. Practices you want to avoid include lifting bulky loads alone, which may shift or fall, twisting at any point during a lift, lifting with your back or bending at the waist, and lifting loads that are greater than 75 pounds. Loads exceeding 75 pounds can cause injury, and you should break up the load into multiple components or utilize an alternative method of lifting. This concludes our new hire safety orientation. Remember, if you have any questions at this point, ask your human resources representative, a supervisor, or the safety director for additional information. Welcome to NT Supply, and good luck.